Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Haunted America. On today's episode, I found two really interesting stories I thought I'd share for you guys about a couple semi-popular hotels you might have heard of out in Las Vegas. This one's for my West Coast peeps, since I have a lot of listeners out there, and I feel like I've been neglecting ghost stories about actual locations. So this is going to be my little test to get back into that and see how well these episodes do. Maybe we'll do more haunted location episodes instead of personal story episodes coming up in the near future. Without further ado, let's get right into the episode. Ooh, really quick before we do, I forgot to say, if you guys can, please don't forget to follow the podcast and give it a rating if you don't mind as well while you're there. I'd greatly appreciate it. Now let's get into the podcast. All right, so the first story is the Luxor Pyramid Hotel in Las Vegas is a cursed paranormal hotbed. Who would have thought? Not me. That's why we chose this episode. Let's get into it. 30 male, if that matters. I'm in sales, and Las Vegas is part of my territory. Although I don't live there, I spend lots of time there for work and need to keep my hotel bill under a certain amount in order for my company to reimburse me. The Luxor is cheap, has a very good valet parking, and is close to my work event. Plus, I've never stayed there before, probably has some dated charm to it. I thought, fuck it, why not? When I walk into the lobby, I felt a mix of uneasy and curious. It's a weird way to feel when you walk into a hotel, isn't it? Especially in Vegas. The Egyptian theme is so dated, yet the architecture was so ambitious for its time. It's not hard to appreciate it. I get to my room, and I just start laughing. This is the worst hotel I've ever stayed at by far. It was built in 1993, but for some reason feels much more dated than that. I always get a room with two queens everywhere I stay because hotels routinely skimp on blankets, so I take the blankets from one bed and bring them to the other so I'm cozy. I do not, in all caps, if that's important, bring over any pillows, since I had enough and wouldn't be able to lay down straight with 6 huge pillows. I just feel like that's an interesting thing to add into the story, is it not? Do any of you guys do this? 6 pillows is crazy to have on a bed, so I'm probably right there with you. Anyways, I wake up early, work out in my room, shower. Housekeeping knocks on my door while I'm getting ready. I had to really yell for her to hear the room was still occupied. That's kind of annoying, so I put a do not disturb sign on my door handle, which stays on for the entirety of my stay. Right as I get ready, the fire alarm goes off. This is the first time this has happened at any hotel I've ever stayed at, I thought. While evacuating, security told me our elevator was shut off, but the opposite sides was still functioning, meaning the alarm was triggered somewhere on my side of the resort. I had to take the fire escape down from the 12th floor. I googled Luxor fire alarm, and I guess this happens a couple of times every month. I wondered if this was the case with every hotel in Las Vegas, but I chalked it up to it just being a cheap, attracting a lot of riff-raff type of hotel. I come back to my room a few hours later to meditate and clear my head for a work event. I beeline straight for the window and check out my view. Then I look at my bed. For some reason, the pillows from the guest bed were stacked up, parallel on top of each other, 3 high, on my bed. Nothing was stolen, and I'm not sure if anything else was misplaced. I wouldn't have remembered the previous location of any other objects in my room, but I knew for a fact that I did not do this. It kind of gave me the creeps, but then I thought security was probably looking for the cause of the fire alarm and went into my room, even though I had the do not disturb sign put up. Then I thought, but why would something like this trigger a fire alarm, be under the pillows of a guest bed, and why would they stack them so neatly on my bed? Okay, yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Okay. But I was there for an important work event and was trying to relax before I had better things to focus on. I dimmed the curtains, lay down, and take some deep breaths. 20 minutes later, my manager calls me, says he needs me to cover a meeting for him. I'm in a rush, I throw my things on and leave, not touching anything else in my room, plus I left the curtains closed. I don't come back until after my work event. I got back into the room around 11 p.m. I open the door and my brain's alarm goes off. Something doesn't look right. The curtains are wide open. I knew that I didn't leave them that way, and again, nothing was stolen. This freaked me out, but I was just trying to mentally justify this. I thought, I just turned up the AC this morning and the windows are diagonal. Maybe the draft opened them up on their own? And I couldn't also have just ADHD'd it, opening my windows on autopilot and forgetting about it. I had to gaslight myself to sleep that night. I told myself it was just my ADHD and it was in fact me that opened the curtains. But when I thought of what the room looked like when I was leaving earlier, it was dim. That scared me, and I had to switch my mental channel. I had to imagine myself opening the curtains and forgetting, and picture that so many times it just seemed plausible. I didn't shower that night out of fear. Oh boy. I didn't shower that night out of fear that something was messing with me. It might take me being naked, wet, and vulnerable as an opportunity to escalate the situation. I prayed hard while constant bumping and tapping occurred throughout the night. Chalked up the noises to loud, unruly neighbors, but the whole time I never saw anyone leave or enter any of the rooms around me. In the morning, I looked at the curtains, still closed. Wasn't a draft that opened them yesterday, I thought to myself. I got on a call with my team, said I was excited to leave because weird shit keeps happening. They asked what I meant and I told them everything. One of my colleagues who was a Vegas local told me the Luxor is notorious for being haunted and cursed, and this is a well-known thing people have said about staying there. As I was leaving, I ran into a security guard outside the elevator and asked her if security goes into the rooms, even if they have the do not disturb sign on. If the fire alarm goes off or something, just check what the origins are. She basically said they can do that on paper, but she doesn't remember a time they have done that. I told her about the pillows and then the curtains being open. She wasn't giving me anything, so I straight up asked her if the place was haunted. She told me no, and that she's never heard of anyone ever reporting that to her. I thought to myself, weird, maybe my coworker just knows a couple people who are bullshitters. Maybe all this stuff was just in my head. I asked the front desk about security going into rooms. She said no, never. I then asked her about guests reporting objects moving in the rooms when they're gone. She said again, no, never. She's never heard of that. Wasn't giving me an inch. I then said, all right, be straight with me. Is this place haunted? Have any other guests ever reported unexplainable things happening in the room? She said, no, never. Haven't heard that from any guests. That's terrible. Somebody moved your stuff around. You should file a report. I smiled and said I was all right because nothing was stolen. I then Googled, is the Luxor Hotel haunted? If nothing popped up, I would have dropped it. But boy, it was obvious at this point that employees are trained to gaslight. Ghosts are bad for business. Not necessarily. I mean, look at all of us listening to this podcast right now. Ghosts are not bad for business. That's what we're all here for. We love this shit. Not only is this a common experience among guests at the Luxor, but it's one of the most common experiences among travelers. It's incredibly well known and documented to be a paranormal hotbed. I'm glad I didn't know this while I was staying there, or else I wouldn't have been able to sleep. To me, it sounded like you weren't able to sleep anyways. You said you didn't want to take a bath or take a shower. You didn't want to be all naked and stuff like that and have the spirits come do the thing. All right, now back onto the story. In the Google search results, the fourth result was a 3-star review about the 12th floor being haunted. I had stayed on the 12th floor. Not only did I stay there, but my room was closest to the elevator, right in the middle of the 12th floor. The most 12th floor room on the 12th floor, if you will. I guess this place has been cursed from the very beginning, with lots of deaths in construction, mafia deaths buried underneath the property, allegedly, 4 suicides between its opening in '93, and now a couple of murders and accidental deaths from safety hazards on some of the attractions. I heard the shape of the resort doesn't help, but I'm no expert. Never staying at that fucking place again. Glad it's getting demolished in 2026. Good riddance. All right. Let me know what you guys think. Very interesting. Ghosts can be, notorious for moving things around. I find it very weird that your pillows were stacked 3 on top of each other all neatly. It sounds like you just ran into a haunted hotel. That's my take on it. Let me know what you guys think. Once again, I've been saying this in the last couple episodes. If you don't know, you can comment if you listen on Spotify. So leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys are thinking. And let's get on to the next tale. All right. Before we dive back into tonight's haunted tale, I've got to tell you something that actually keeps me going through all these late night investigations. And that's Dubby Energy. Look, when you're up at 2 a.m. reviewing EVP recordings or scrolling through ghost footage, the last thing you need is a sugar crash or shaky hands. Dubby gives you clean, focused energy. No jitters, no crash, and definitely no creepy side effects. It's packed with natural caffeine, vitamins, and nootropics. Everything you need to stay alert when the shadows start to move. And if you want to try it yourself, here's a little treat. Or maybe a trick. Head to dubby.gg. Use the code HAUNT10 at checkout to save 10% on your order. That's HAUNT10 to get 10% off and keep your energy level higher than your EMF readings. Dubby Energy. Fuel your focus and maybe your next ghost hunt. Now let's get into the last story of this episode. Bally's Hotel Casino, Las Vegas. So we're staying in that Vegas area here. It was the year 2020, the COVID era. My buddies and I lived in California and would drive to Vegas every other weekend to go gamble. Degenerates. Excuse me. We were about 24 at the time, that explains it, and really didn't have a lot of responsibilities. To add to some context, my buddy is kind of a player and pulls a lot of women, so we would go to Vegas. He always ends up finding one and leaving with them. We share the same room, so he never brings the chick back to our room. Very interesting there. So one Vegas weekend, I lost a lot of money and decided to head upstairs and sleep. My buddy lost his room key and woke me up out of my sleep, so I opened the door for him. I get up half awake and open the door. First, I see a woman next to him, but she's in front of the door. I let them both in. Without saying a word, I crawl back into my cover. My first initial thought was he never brings chicks up to our room, but I was so tired I really didn't think too much on it. All right, okay, we're gonna keep going on here. He asked for the weed. I tell him where it's at. While telling him, the chick is staring at me, but I pay her no mind because I wasn't trying to make things awkward. He finds the weed, and they both leave the room. I end up going back to sleep, so the next morning I wake up and ask him about the chick he was with last night. He tells me that he's lost a lot of money last night and wasn't in a joking mood. I told him I wasn't joking. He told me there was no chick, woman, female, or anybody of that matter. He went downstairs to go smoke by himself. I started freaking out, telling him I think I seen a ghost. All right. Maybe I would like to know if you were smoking the weeds before what made you go to sleep? Huh? Now, before I get into that, my homie isn't the type to lie. Pretty serious dude for the most part, and isn't no trolling, so I believe him after the second time he insisted that he was by himself. He was baffled by the whole thing, saying she isn't allowed to follow me out of this room, and yeah, all right. Now, I've never been known to hallucinate. I only smoke weed and I'm a veteran, but I started seeing things that wasn't there. Also, she looked very real. You couldn't tell it was a ghost by the way she looked. She looked just like a normal person. Now, the biggest question is why she didn't say anything back to me when she walked in. And I asked myself this all the time. The main reason I was tired and didn't want to converse. Huh? All right, a little crazy there. I didn't know what to say either because normally my buddy doesn't bring chicks to our room, and I didn't want to make things awkward since my buddy didn't introduce me. I just left it alone. I feel like the world would have ended if I would have spoke to her. She looked Hispanic and in her early 20s. A couple years ago, I told someone else about this story, and they told me that Bally's is known for having ghosts in their casino, and also that people have died there from a fire. After realizing I might have seen a ghost, I am more lost on how this world works. I've been trying to get answers. Please, what are your thoughts? All right, let me look this up, guys. Bally's Casino, Las Vegas. Okay, so I guess there was a fire in the 1980s. The term Bally's Casino Las Vegas fire most often refers to the tragic 1980s MGM Grand Fire, which occurred at the hotel before it was renamed Bally's. This fire killed 85 people and is the deadliest in Nevada history. All right, so it's quite possible maybe that the person that he saw just was accompanying his friend that night, and that maybe she passed on in that fire that was in the 1980s. I would like to know what she was wearing, like if she looked like she belonged to that time period of the 2020s, or if she looked like she was, yeah, you know what I mean, like if she was dressed for the 1980s or if she dressed for the 2020s. Let me know what you guys think. It got a little hard to follow there at the end, but I think we get it for the most part. And let me know what you guys think about this kind of episode too. When we first started this podcast, we did a lot of covering actual haunted locations, and we've kind of ventured onto telling more of just like ghost stories. Maybe we start going forward and doing a little bit of a mix of both. Let me know what you guys think. And that is going to do it for today's episode of Haunted America, guys. There's something in my throat there on this episode. Without further ado, I guess let's just get out of here. Please follow, review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. And until next time, this has been Haunted America. We'll catch you guys on the next one.